Good morning and welcome to this edition of Walk on the Water. And I have a very special guest and a good friend with me this morning, a gentleman that I have the highest level of respect for, Mr. David Bentley. David, thank you so much for taking the time out to be here and do this morning.
Mr. Wayne, the feeling is mutual. I've got the highest respect for you, and I've long considered you a friend. So I'm more than happy to come on and be with you today.
David and I got to know each other back, I guess, David, it's been 10, 15 years ago now, back when I was broadcasting some sports for Anderson University, and David was working with the basketball team. But David, I just want to ask you about some things, and I don't believe that God ever makes a mistake. That being said, he has dealt you a hand that most of us would have no idea how to deal with. My friend, how has life treated you? What was it like in school growing up when you were different, so to speak? Just in general, how did things go?
Yeah, Mr. Wayne, it was, obviously you can't see on this camera, but I'm a little person. I have dwarfism. And, so growing up, it definitely had its challenges. I couldn't, athletic wise, I was just as competitive as all my friends, but, I couldn't run as fast. I couldn't jump as high. And, I couldn't keep up in a lot of stuff. But my tough spirit and my competitiveness would allow me to, stay in touch with them and play the same sports. And I was always outgoing, and my personality's always been the same. And, I've always said that, I don't like to use the term disability because I think it makes people seem that you're unable to do anything. And I just think it means you have to do something in a different way. So I think just having a disability or a challenge in life is, again, one, God just using you to ultimately point people to himself and say, like, hey, if that guy can do it, it's ultimately not me doing it, it's God, because I wouldn't be able to do it without God. And two, I think it also provides a platform for me to point to God, because other people, when you look out at a crowd of kids growing up and you see everybody else is the same, but then you see, hey, that little person over there, he's participating too. Well, that gives me a different platform to be able to point to God and say, yeah, I know God made me unique and God made me different, but that doesn't mean I can do everything the same and, maybe in a different way. So growing up, it was definitely had its challenges. You walk into public places and people stare at you or they'll point at you and, they'll ask their mom, why does he look different? And, there was times where, they get hard. You're like, I'm tired of being the friend that walks into the mall and everybody points at me. And, it definitely had its challenges, but you just got to come back to, again, growing up, my parents really instilled faith in me. I was at church on, Sundays and Wednesdays, and, they really grew up reading the Bible, knowing the Word, and they really instilled in me, like you just said, God doesn't make mistakes. God made me like I am for a reason, and ultimately, he's going to use me like I am for a reason. And you just got to hold on to that fact, because I think if you don't have that foundation, don't hold on to that, it's very easy to get sidetracked by, hey, you can't do this, or hey, you look different, so I'm not going to pick you, or whatever the world, quote unquote, throws at you or says about you. You have to ultimately hold on to what God says about you.
Well, David, I have said this many times, and even before I met you, and it's been such a blessing to get to know you, but I've said many times that the least important thing that makes us a big man is our physical size and looks. And my friend, you're one of the biggest men I've ever met. Let me ask you this. Growing up, as a young man, did you ever dream of coaching basketball?
I think so. I always wanted to be around sports. Basketball wasn't my growing up as a kid. I always played baseball first. I played every sport: basketball, baseball, football. I played everything. But as I grew, different sports fell off quicker. Obviously, football fell off because I'm not as physical. I can't hang with the speed of those guys. Basketball fell off probably second just because eventually you got to have some kind of size. And then baseball fell off. But I guess baseball and basketball around the same time because, eventually the running, the athleticism, the skill is going to fall off. So once those happened, I knew I'm not giving up sports. I'm too competitive. Right. I love sports. Absolutely. So I said, you know what? Let's do the next best thing and coach, be a manager, stay around the sport. So when you say early on did I know, I didn't know as a kid, but I probably knew about middle school. Like, hey, eventually these sports are going to stop one day, but I'm in no way going to stop being around the sport. So I'm going to do the next best thing.
Well, when I got to know you, you were working with the men's basketball team at Anderson University, and I'm assuming, or you tell me, am I correct in assuming that you were involved with basketball long before you got to Anderson University?
Yep, I was a basketball manager all 4 years of high school. At Greer High School, I was a manager for all 4 years. So, and then obviously I played church rec basketball growing up. So I had been involved, but I had been involved with basketball all 4 years of high school, and I knew I wanted to go to college to be involved with the basketball program to start my coaching career.
So when you went to Anderson University, had you already talked with Coach Taylor and some of the folks there knew that you could be involved with the program?
Yep, so funny story, when my senior year, probably my junior year, we had a player at Greer that was being recruited at a very high level, ACC schools, SEC schools. And my goal was I wanted to go as high as possible. All these teams you watch on TV, I had heard of Anderson University because my high school coach had actually had kids that gone to Anderson. So I had heard about it, but I didn't know much about it. My goal was to go to Clemson. You watch Clemson on TV, you see them on the ACC and ESPN, and you want to go, be a part of that. The player we had was being recruited by them. So I wanted to go to Clemson. Well, one day, my senior year, probably the fall, we had a couple, as coaches are making their rounds in the fall being recruited, Coach Taylor came in to our school. And basically, it was the end of the school day, and my high school coach, he was there to watch a couple kids work out. And my high school coach wasn't able to get away from the class to work the kids out. So he said, hey, why don't you take these kids in the gym and work them out for the Anderson coach? I said, okay, cool. So took them into the auxiliary gym, ran them through a workout, and didn't think anything of it. Well, Coach Taylor, I guess I found out afterwards, Coach Taylor had went up to my high school coach, and I didn't know this till the next day. When he asked him, he said, hey, what'd you think of the two players? He said, oh, they're good. I'd love to have them. I want your manager.
Oh, wow.
So he said,
that's great.
So he told me, he said, hey, if you would like to be a part, we don't have any managers. If you can apply and get into Anderson, we'd love to have you part of our program. And obviously, as God would have it, I said, you know what? I'll apply. Nothing, still want to go to Clemson, but I'll apply to Anderson. Well, as God would have it, I didn't give as much financial aid to Clemson as I would Anderson, being a private school. So I said, you know what? To help myself out, I didn't have much financial help from my family. I'm going to make the smart financial decision. I'm going to just go to Anderson. And again, as you were a part of our program and around our program for those years, we had some of the best years in the school's history.
Oh, absolutely. And quite frankly, I'm glad you went to Anderson. Well, David, I reached out to our good friend, Coach Jason Taylor. Coach Taylor has just taken a new position as associate head coach at Morehead State University in Kentucky. And here's what he had to say about your impact on the program at Anderson. And I quote from Coach Taylor. I gave David the nickname The Glue. Better yet, he earned that. I didn't give it to him. He was every bit as important member in our program than any coach or player. He impacted me and everyone on that campus. He still does. I love him, and am thankful He's allowed me to be a small part of His worldly journey. Very kind words from a great coach, Coach Jason Taylor. David, I think about when I think about what the Lord has done in my life, and sometimes I've prayed for things that didn't happen, and then I look back and I'm so glad it didn't happen, because God's plan for my life is much better than my own plan.
Absolutely.
For my life. And I think that was the example that you had there by Him opening that door for you to come to Anderson University. Well, David, I know and I don't, as I get old, the years all run together, but I know 5, 6, 7 years ago you had to deal with some major surgery. What, and I know very little about what that was. I just know you had to go through that. So what kind of led up to that surgery? What was it like? And are you okay afterwards?
Yeah, so it was actually, now that I think about it, Mr. White, you were right on. I think it was about 7 or 8 years ago. Yeah. Basically, before those years, my mobility as a little person slowly started getting worse. And it was a gradual process. It was more so, I couldn't run as fast. Well, then when I started running, I wouldn't have a normal run. I'd have to kind of whip my leg around and keep compensating. Then it would be painful to walk. Then it was almost I couldn't walk without some kind of holding on to somebody's arm. So as my mobility started to get worse, I started, at first, being the competitor in me, when it was kind of in its early stages, I just fought through it. Looking back, I probably should have recognized something was going on then.
Right.
But I just fought through it because I'm like, I'm a tough cookie. This is it's just something I got to work through. Well, when it finally got to where I couldn't walk and it was very painful, I said, hey, something's going on. I got to go see a doctor. So, not to get into an anatomy lesson, basically, right. One of the side effects of being a little person is I have a narrow spinal cord. Well, what had happened was in my spine, the spine was basically, in a sense, choking the nerves and damaging the nerve signals that were going to my legs. So, obviously, that was causing the pain, and that was why it was becoming so hard to get around. Well, I had to, the doctor says, hey, yeah, we got to go in and operate. Well, so in January of 2016, I had a surgery on my spine, and basically they went in and basically relieved all the pressure from those choking about halfway up my back all the way down to my pelvis. And then they had to go put screws in to fuse me to basically, so my spine wouldn't become unstable. Right. So I had the surgery. I spent a month and a half in the hospital rehabbing. And again, what that surgery's done is it's taken the pain and the pressure away, which has been great. But it's also obviously provided its challenges in, being needing a wheelchair to get around in public. Right. And it's also had other issues where it affects, like I'll have occasional muscle spasms. There's, and again, not to disclose too much, and there's bowel and bladder problems that come with it, and sure. Whatnot. So it definitely has its challenges, but again, as you know me and just my competitive spirit, it's not going to stop me. It's kind of what you said at the beginning, the hand that God dealt me, and I just got to keep playing the cards and draw the next one, and hopefully one of those next ones, is the ace in the hole that I'm waiting for.
Well, I'm certainly God has big plans for you. David, tell me a little bit about, just me catching up with you a little bit here, life after Anderson University. I know you went on and did some coaching, and tell me a little bit about that.
Well, when I had my surgery, the coach at Hargrave basically said, hey, we're an old military school in rural Virginia. Campus isn't really conducive. Go home, have your surgery. You be at home and recruit for us. So I basically started becoming like a coach on the road, recruiting for Hargrave. Well, that was kind of during the normal basketball season. Well, I wanted to have a fix of, I'm recruiting, but I'm not on the floor working with kids. So I said, you know what? Let me find some summer travel ball to be a part of. That's what I knew the people over at Upward Sports, over in Spartanburg, through high school and whatnot. So I got involved with them. But actually, let me back up. A year before that, a buddy of mine, him and I just coached a little mom and pop team together. he was a local guy in sales, and he just wanted to help a couple local kids out. It was like, hey, I'll fund everything, and you'll coach, and we'll help these kids. So I coached that team. We had a great time, great kids. And then the next year, Upward came to me and said, hey, we want you to coach with our programs. We know what you can bring. We know the connections you have. We know the knowledge of the game. We want you to coach with our programs. Over to Upward, and I've been coaching with Upward for probably the last 6 years and whatnot. So coaching with Upward has been great. You get to travel around the country. You get to work with great players. You know, one of the players I had just got all SEC team at South Carolina this past year. We've had guys go to Clemson, and we've had guys, you know, we had a guy last year get drafted by the Chicago Bulls. So
Wow.
we've had guys go all different levels. We actually have a kid that played for me, Mr. Wayne, is coming to Anderson next year. So
Terrific.
we've had kids, so we've had kids go different levels and whatnot. So that's been great. And then as far as looking forward, you know, my goal, I'd love to get back to the college level because of the competitive, or I'd love to get to the NBA just to work
Right.
with, you know, because especially a competitor, you always want the next challenge. And to me, no better challenge than working with the best coaches in the world, the best players in the world, and all that. So that's my next goal. But again, just trying to make the most of where God has me and be, you know, to use the cliche, be where your feet are. I'm just trying to be where my feet are and make the most of where God has me right now.
Well, David, you will probably never realize on this side how much effect and how much you have done for the people that you have worked with over the years. And I'm sure some of them have gone on and shared with others. And man, you've been a tremendous impact on a lot of people. And like I said, you'll probably never know the greatness of it till you get on the other side. But I just admire you tremendously. You are living proof that with the faith in God, there's no limit to what anybody can accomplish. So, David, we're going to close this thing out here pretty quick. But what advice would you have for someone that's listening to your story or listening to these podcasts that may not have made that decision, put their trust in the Lord, or maybe teetering on which way to go? What would you say to those people?
I would say that it's the light that gets you through the storms of life because you have something to look to. And because again, we all know, Mr. Wayne, we live in this world that's, you know, it's got its problems, wars, politics, everything of that nature. And when we get so consumed into what's going on around us, it's so easy for us
That's right.
to sort of go with the wind and go every which way. And to have that anchor sort of always bringing you back to, hey, there's more to this life than what we see around us. There's more to, there's something better coming. And again, we might not see it. You just said it. We might not see it till the other side. But that's the faith part of it, to know, hey,
Right. Exactly.
everything in this life, everything that I've gone through, my physical challenges, everything else, one day is going to be made all right and be made perfectly. So I have that to look forward to. Because again, it'd be easy for someone in my shoes to say, you know what, I've had a hard life. Once I overcome one challenge, it's another one waiting on me.
Right.
It'd be easy for me to say, you know what, throw my hands up, I give up. I'm tired of this. But knowing that one, this life's not about me, it's about Jesus. And two, knowing that everything Jesus has me going through is to make me more like him, to point me to him, and to show me of what's coming is what keeps me going. So again, if someone's listening and they're teetering or whatnot, or they're kind of like, well, why should I believe? And you have a hard life. Why would God allow that? Like, if He's a good God, why would He allow that stuff to happen to you? And I would more say God allows suffering because He suffered. He suffered for us on the cross. He was
Absolutely.
tempted. He faced everything we do, but He overcame it. Now, obviously, we're not perfect. I fall short every day. But
Don't we all?
I know one day I'm not going to have to face any more physical challenges. I'm not going to be I'm not going to have to roll around in a wheelchair when I get to heaven. I'm going to be able to, just like I did when I was a kid, I'm going to be able to run around, jump up and down. Mr. Wayne, you might not even recognize me. I might be your size when we get up there. But
If you are, you'll still be small.
but all that to say is the faith to get you through to something to look forward to, because then I don't get so consumed with every challenge that comes my way, knowing that Jesus is going to make this all right one day. And again, the second advice I would give to someone is, I think, tied into the faith aspect, but I think it's, you got to have community around you. If I didn't have people around me, Mr. Wayne, I'll just tell you, like, there's been days I might not outwardly say it, outwardly post about it. There's been days where I've been going through it and I'm like, man, this is tough. But then I'll get a random message from you that's saying, hey, buddy, hope you're doing well. Just was thinking about you and all you did for us and the great times we had at Anderson. And something that simple is like, hey, you know what? As tough as this is for me, I have people around me that are willing to pick me up. Even when you may never have known it, you picked me up. I have friends that I can call that, hey, how you doing? You going through it? Let's go get coffee. Let's go get ice cream together. And they pick you up when you can't do it yourself. Because I think one of the funniest things to me, Mr. Wayne, is people always say God gives us, God never gives us more than we can handle. And
Right.
I think that's a little bit of bogus, to be honest. I think God gives us more than we can handle. I think He does that so we can lean on Him
Exactly.
and lean on the people around us. Because I think there's times where God says, hey, I don't want you to fight anymore. Let me fight for you. Or
Absolutely.
lean on the people that I've put into your life. Let them pick you up and carry you for a little bit. And so those would be kind of the two advices I'd give is, obviously have that anchor. What's your anchor when everything around you might seem crazy? What are you coming back to? And then you got to have community. Have community. Have a handful of people in your circle that can pick you up and carry you when sometimes you don't feel like going yourself.
David, you are 1,000% correct. And I don't know how someone gets through the trials that we all go through, and you much more so than most of us, without that faith. And that's the reason I chose Walk on the Water as the title for this podcast series that I'm doing, because it goes back to when Peter stepped out of the boat and Jesus looked at him and said, come. As long as he had his eyes on Jesus and his faith in Jesus, he could walk on that water. But once he didn't, he began to sink. And that's the story for all of us. Brother, I appreciate you, man. I just love you. If there's ever anything I can do for you, you don't hesitate to call on me. And again, thank you so much for taking the time out to do this. I just got a feeling that God's going to use you in this, and He's going to use you to reach some people. We may not know about it on this side, but He's going to use it.
Yeah. No, Mr. Wayne, again, I love you too, man, and I think the world of you. And like I said, I've always, every time I saw you on our bus, you coming to call the game with the radio gear in hand, or ever since then, when I see your posts on Facebook or your name pops up in my inbox, I always smile a little bit, and because of all the great times we had, but just because of who you are as a person. And I appreciate you thinking enough of me and my story and what God's doing to have me on your platform. So, or as you said, His platform that He's using you through. So, again, I appreciate you enough, and I have no doubt that God's going to use what you're doing through this platform.
All right, buddy. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you for watching Walk on the Water. Walk on the Water is a video cast about individuals and the things God is doing in our lives if we just keep our eyes and faith focused on Jesus. You can view previous episodes of Walk on the Water if you'll go to our YouTube channel. Please visit and comment if you like what we're doing. Subscribe to the channel, leave us a comment, or let us know if you would like to share your story with Walk on the Water. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for the next episode.